Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to the first edition of NoDQ&A video here in 2014. I hope you all had a happy and safe New Year's Eve. I'm still here, so that means it's time to get back down to business with NoDQ&A video. Got your questions from spring.me/AaronRift. That is the place to submit questions for future episodes. Let's start off here with the first question of 2014. Let's get this out of the way right now. This one comes from Joe. Hey Aaron, since CM Punk gave Dean Ambrose the middle finger on Raw, does this mean the Attitude Era is coming back? For the first time ever, I am going to break out the button to answer this question. So here we go.
For the last time, no.
So there you have it. Now, on to the serious questions here from Wraith Wolf 007. Is there any hope of the WWE doing with Daniel Bryan what everybody wants to see instead of what nobody wants to see? It's frustrating to see him in the Wyatt angle on Raw and his apparent joining of the group. Push him in the main event, it's simple. I have gotten so many questions about Daniel Bryan and the angle that ended Raw this week. I think I got more questions about Daniel Bryan than I got Christmas presents in 1991. And for those of you that saw that video, you know that that was a lot. So I'm going to talk about it here. This is what everybody's been talking about. My take on it is that you have to wait and see what happens. I brought up this topic a few weeks ago. I said that if WWE was to turn Daniel Bryan heel, it would be a disaster. It would be a great way to kill the momentum that he's been building up over the past year. And it would be burning money to turn Daniel Bryan heel. There have been several angles over the years where a babyface has teased going with a heel group and then he ends up double-crossing him. It's happened many times. There was one big angle for those of you that watched WCW back in the day where Sting had teased going into the NWO, and actually for several weeks he would come out with the group and just stand there and it looked like he was with them. And then at the uncensored pay-per-view, I think this was 1997, Sting attacked them and laid them out and became the top babyface. So the same thing could end up happening here with Daniel Bryan, where he acts like he's with the group and then he double crosses them. I am going to assume that is what WWE is doing here. I don't imagine that they will make him a full-fledged heel and this will be a permanent thing. So like I said, just be patient and wait to see how the story plays out. And I thought it was very well done. I really enjoyed the ending of Raw, and I thought it was a great cliffhanger to see where it goes. So, just let it play out and give it room to breathe, and we'll see what happens. This one comes from Javier Made in Spa. Hey Aaron, Happy New Year. With John Cena versus Randy Orton as a pay-per-view main event again, plus Daniel Bryan partially turning heel by joining the Wyatt family, is this the ultimate spit from the WWE to the internet, or do they have something big planned? Well, regarding do they have something big planned or not, that remains to be seen. They got WrestleMania 30 coming up, and I'm sure whatever they do, it's going to be a huge event. It's going to be a near record breaker, if not an all-time record breaker in terms of pay-per-view buy rate and attendance and whatnot. They're going to make a ton of money one way or another. So it doesn't really matter what exactly they have planned, whether it pleases the internet or whether it pleases the casual fan. They're just looking to make big money at WrestleMania, and WrestleMania is going to be huge no matter what. Now, as far as the Royal Rumble goes, John Cena versus Randy Orton, I just find it funny that they went from having a Hell in a Cell match to an Iron Man match to a TLC match, and now at the Royal Rumble, they are going to compete in a normal wrestling match. Seems like TNA booking to me, but whatever. The bottom line is that the Royal Rumble is the Royal Rumble. People are going to buy that pay-per-view for the Royal Rumble match, and it doesn't really matter what else you have on the card. So they want to do John Cena versus Randy Orton, number 395. Go ahead. I don't care. I mean, it should be a fine match, and we've seen it a million times, but whatever. To me, it's just another match. The Royal Rumble match itself is what I'm always looking forward to the most, and that's the match that I buy the pay-per-view to see. Alright, this one comes from Wrestling Do 95. Do you see Christopher Daniels ever winning the TNA World title at some point in his career? I'd like to say yes because I'm a big fan of Daniels and I've been a fan of his for well over a decade, going back to the early 2000s. But I think that it's too little too late with him. Daniels is already into his 40s now, and TNA needs to focus on younger talent. And I don't think it would be a good idea to make him the TNA World Champion. I think you have to just start putting your stock into the younger talent. And, a lot of people don't like the fact that Magnus is the TNA World Champion, but they have to be going in that direction. They have to try to push some new blood and try to get over some new stars. And as great as Daniels is, he should have had that chance a decade ago. That's when they should have gone all the way with him. Maybe after that Turning Point cage match with him and Elix Skipper and AMW, that should have been the time to push him to the top, and they didn't do it. So, I mean, that was their best opportunity then. Pushing him towards the top now, I think would be a mistake. I think you need to focus on the younger talent. So, I think in all likelihood, it's not going to happen. All right, this one comes from Royal Ale Bledsoe. Hey, Aaron, long-time viewer, first-time asker. Who's the most forgettable champion ever? Mine would be Albert as the IC champion in 2001. Who's yours? Answer in video, please, and keep it up, big guy. Well, it's hard for me to say because the most forgettable champion, I forgot who that person was, so I really couldn't tell you. There's been so many title reigns and so many different people holding the belts over the years. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to be able to remember all the WWE champions easily, and I could, up until the late 90s, remember most of the IC champions. There's probably at least a dozen IC champions that I've totally forgotten about, and I wouldn't even be able to name them. It would just be impossible for me to do that. So it's really hard for me to answer that question because I just can't remember a lot of people that held the belt. And, as far as maybe the most forgettable world champion, I would probably say Jack Swagger because it was such a flop. And maybe history will look back and Del Rio will be another guy who's a forgettable world champion. But for the IC champions, I mean, shoot, I can't even remember half the people that held that title, to be honest with you. All right, this one comes from WWE Fan Dark Arrow. Hey, Aaron, do you think that there will be another company like WCW to at least compete with WWE? As much as I would like to say yes, I just don't see it happening anytime in the near future. Now, anything's possible. Maybe one day a new company will rise up from the ashes and will be able to compete with WWE. But I don't think there's going to be that many people out there willing to invest in a company to compete with WWE. If Ted Turner, the billionaire, couldn't beat WWE, who can? I mean, that's what I'm sure a lot of people are thinking out there, people that have considered investing in a wrestling company. I just don't know. I mean, anything is possible. I mean, for all we know, one day TNA might have a breakout star and might turn around and be able to compete with WWE. I mean, anything can happen. But for the near future, I mean, WWE is such a well-oiled machine, and the brand name is so strong. When people think of professional wrestling, they think of WWE. It's going to be hard for any company to come close to the level that WCW got in the mid-90s. All right, final question today from Brian Davey. Hello, Aaron, first-time asker, long-time follower of the website. My question is, I wonder how far back in wrestling history have you followed? As I'm 31 and followed it back to the 60s and 70s. Any answer would be nice, and thank you for the great site. Well, thank you for that. I've been watching wrestling as long as I can remember. My dad started recording wrestling shows on VH tape around 1983. So, I mean, that's the period where I really started to follow wrestling. I watched all those tapes, watched all the WWF shows, watched most of the NWA shows and, AWA and maybe a few other promotions. And, I think he had a few tapes that contained footage from the 60s and 70s. So I saw some matches from that period, but I'm not all that familiar with wrestling before the mid 80s. So, you know, that's really the period that I've been following closely from the mid 80s on. And, you know, with WWE DVD releases when they release old matches. And I hope they do more of that. I hope WWE produces more DVDs with matches from the 60s and 70s. But the thing is, you know, there's not a lot of tape left from that period, and it's hard to find footage from that period. You know, a lot of it's rare. So, you know, a lot of people know about that period from either they grew up on it, or they read the wrestling magazines and read up on it, or they can watch whatever footage they're able to find. But yeah, from the mid 80s and on, that's the period that I was really following wrestling on a full-time basis, and I'm familiar with that period. All right, that'll do it for this edition of No DQ&A Video, the first one of 2014. Thank you for checking out today's video. Subscribe, youtube.com/NoDQCAW if you haven't already. And stay tuned to NoDQ.com for all the very latest regarding the Royal Rumble. And I will see you guys next time for more.